The wet tropics of Australia is home for many structural types of drop-covering forests and is a hotspot of biodiversity for many bryophytes.
But first, what are these bryophytes?
Bryophytes are a group of non-vascular plants that include liverworts, hornworts, and mosses. Bryophytes are unique in that they do not have a root system to absorb nutrients and water from the ground. Therefore, they must instead absorb all their nutrients and water from the atmosphere and the elements around them. Bryophytes also have a very high cell storage capacity, which enables them to hold on to higher levels of water and nutrients than other plants, making them a desirable habitat for small organisms, which we refer to as Bryofauna.
What would you say is the importance of the fauna that we find in bryophytes around here?
The importance of the fauna. They are microfauna, really tiny, microscopic often, little animals that live amongst the leaves of the bryophytes. Many of them have the facility of anhydrobiosis, so they can lose the water within their cells and cope with drying out, particularly those that live in epiphytes, bryophytes, so they are epiphytes that are subject to drying in the open because there's nowhere to hide. So they do provide that. They also provide, when they many mosses, when they're dry, their leaves close up, and so small invertebrates could hide amongst the closed leaves too.
Common species of Bryofauna include nematodes, tardigrades, betaloid rotifers, orbitid mites, and springtails. These species rely heavily on their host bryophyte because they provide a habitat and food source that is difficult to damage and eliminate. We set out on a research project to discover what kinds of creatures live among tropical bryophytes and how abundant they are in different bryospecies. If you look at the general structure of the two major groups of bryophytes, a moss and a liverwort, you will notice that mosses are generally more open in structure with simple leaves, while liverworts tend to adhere more tightly to their substrate and have more complex folded leaves that creatures like to hide in. We therefore think that liverworts will have more bryofauna associated with them than mosses.
I know for a fact that in the temperate zone, there's been a lot more studies done on the kind of animals, little animals and creatures that live among bryophytes or use bryophytes as habitat or food, such as in like the spectrum mosses in the northern hemispheric regions. However, in the tropics, there have been very, very little studies on sort of Bryofauna on tropical bryophytes. So we thought that might be something really interesting to look into and do a general screening study to examine the kind of diversity of Bryofauna you find in tropical rainforest bryophytes.
For our methodology, first, 2 by 2 centimeter squares of all bryophytes were collected across 6 different field sites with different climates and compositions. All samples were either placed inside a sample jar or an envelope and marked with the location, sample number, and date collected. Samples were then left to soak in 1 milliliter of water for at least 24 hours. From there, all samples were looked at under a dissecting microscope for 5 minutes at a time to ID species and look for external fauna. From there, samples were pulled apart and placed on slides for observation of microorganisms under a light microscope. In total, we collected over 300 samples of bryophytes and saw thousands of fauna in these samples. Even though we did not find any significant differences between the fauna on mosses and liverworts, we nonetheless discovered how rich and diverse these small ecosystems can be. On one of our liverwort samples, about the size of this liverwort I have here, we saw over 1,000 fauna, with behaviors including predators preying on smaller animals, much like larger ecosystems have. Bryophytes are often overlooked in forest ecology studies, and Bryofauna even more so. Because these Bryofauna play important roles in their habitats, such as processing detritus, and because this field is so little studied, we hope our video inspires other people to delve deeper into this trove of hidden fauna.